Hello, I'm Jim Demlin with Clark County Close-Up. Thank you very much for meeting with us.
It's a pleasure.
So Sheriff, you're about a year into your second term.
Correct.
And in May, you announced a decision not to seek re-election, meaning your term will expire at the end of 2022. Why have you decided so early in your term not to seek re-election?
It's not been a secret to the people I work with and anybody that I talk to that when I came out of retirement to be the sheriff, it was a two-term deal for me. I will be almost 69 years old, 40 plus years on the job, and I felt I had something to offer for this 8 years that I was going to come along, but I also realized that I have a life after this and a family and a wife that deserves to enjoy some free time, some travel time, and that's certainly what I'm looking forward to doing.
Okay. So have you started some succession planning?
Absolutely. I started succession planning day one that I came in, 5 years ago, because I realized where I was coming from, and I had surrounded myself with a management team that was similar in the amount of years on the job as I had, and I knew fully well that they were coming along on this ride with me to help make some changes and put our stamp on what the sheriff's office was all about, but that they would be leaving as well. So it's been on our mind from day one on how we're preparing the next level of management to work their way through and to come up and be ready to take our positions.
Okay. Now, just for the average viewer, they see the sheriff's patrol and they think, well, that's it. You guys send the cars out and do that.
Correct.
What all the kind of services does the sheriff's office provide?
Now, obviously, I have the enforcement branch. That's the white Tahoes you see running out there with the big, bold sheriff written on it. And I wanted us to be very visible and make it obvious to who we were. So we handle the enforcement world, and that's search and rescue, that's Marine, that's SWAT, that's traffic, that's all of the enforcement pieces. But we also have a jail, a corrections branch, that houses people that are incarcerated in Clark County for crimes that are sentenced to less than a year in jail. And we manage that as well.
And all of Clark County, including
Correct.
cities,
All cities use the jail. My jail is the jail for all of Clark County. And then I have a civil branch that handles all civil process in the county to include logistics and evidence for us on our cases that we work. So I have about 450 employees involved in those three branches.
Okay. So over these last 5 years, what have been some of your biggest achievements?
Wow. Coming in, I knew that staffing was always an issue. Funding and staffing are going to be an issue forever. So I worked really closely with the Civil Service Department to make sure that we had a good working relationship and that we could push people through the system. But I also noticed right away that we had a very long process in getting through the backgrounds. And it's very important that we really look to the character of the people that we hire, but we do extensive psychological exams, polygraphs, background checks, and we verify that information to make sure we're hiring the right people. We found a ways to work with civil service to push that and to not just announce a hiring time for 3 months that we're going to be looking. I test for both corrections and enforcement year-round, and I think that was a huge benefit to us.
Okay.
I think yes, and I think one of the other big accomplishments is that we also realized right away that our jail was failing, and it was important to us that we start looking at what we need to do to move forward with getting a new jail and how we could better staff it as well as the road. And so besides the civil service process working with us, we also worked with the council to get a process in place where we could overhire, and I could hire internally within my reserve unit, my corrections branch, and people were able to move between branches without having to go outside and come complete through the process.
Okay. And so we're going to get into detail on those issues. So let's go back to the jail.
Okay.
So much study work has been done on replacing or improving the county jail. First, tell our viewers, why is the jail a new jail or an improved jail needed?
Well, this jail is 30 plus years old. The equipment inside of it isn't even operating correctly. Parts aren't even made by the companies anymore to replace the rolling doors and the different things. It was built at a time with what we call indirect supervision, where inmates are in a locked pod, whereas the corrections officers are in a secure cubicle looking. And it's almost like the Zoom mentality is the way I look at it. Today, indirect or direct supervision is the method that's used. It's been being used for 20 plus years, but our jail was built and fairly new 35 years ago, and wasn't in a position to be replaced yet. So we really need to bring that jail into the 21st century, into direct supervision, where the pod officer is sitting in a pod area with the inmates that they're responsible for, looking them in the eye day to day and seeing them for who they are, and understanding them that they're here for committing whatever crime it might be, but we also have an obligation to confine them in a constitutional way, a humane way. And what better way than if I'm the pod officer looking at you, and you today are different to me than you were the last week, maybe I can intervene quicker as to what the issue is with you. So we need to come into the 21st century. We need to make this jail safe. We need to fix the fire alarm systems and all the things that would make it safe for people to be in a place where they really don't have a choice to leave.
Okay. Now recently the Clark County Correction Facility Advisory Committee made a recommendation. Obviously, it's much longer than we could talk about in full, but what's a brief description of their recommendation?
Their recommendation after 18 months was we should have a new facility. They agree on that. That's huge. Everybody agrees it needs to be replaced. With a bed count of about 890 beds. Now that number that they worked so hard to come up with is contingent upon building resources around the jail that help us to divert the mentally ill, the drug and alcohol issues, those areas where we can get people help that they shouldn't be sitting in a jail cell, and making law enforcement corrections deputies deal with people that they're really not trained to deal with, and that those people need to be in a different place. So they have decided on that 890 beds, but they also decided that if they don't put those resources in place, that number is going to be a higher number over the next 30 to 35 years, because you build a jail about once every 35 years, and we're beyond that.
So where do we go from here? What are the next steps?
Well, the next steps are the CFAC group had put the recommendation in front of the county council and the county manager. They now know what that recommendation is. It's up to the county council to decide what it is they want to do with that. It's now in their hands. Do they want to build on the existing platform? Do they want to grow a little bit larger on the existing platform so that we can accommodate the housing? Because I have 600 and some people in the jail downtown now. I can't just empty it. Where do they go? So we have to figure out how we're going to do that, and then it's going to ultimately go to the people, the taxpayers of Clark County, all taxpayers of Clark County, to bond this and to be able to make this happen.
Okay. You mentioned as one of the challenges or one of the achievements, staffing. How has the wave of baby boomer retirements impacted your department?
Wow. Over the last 5 years, I've lost, I got myself some numbers here because I wanted to make sure that I had it exactly right. But I have lost 46 corrections officers and enforcement deputies to retirement.
Out of 450?
Out of 450.
Wow.
Now, that's over the last 5 years of just attrition and people leaving. Mm-hmm. But right now, looking at my numbers, in enforcement, corrections, and civil, today, 99 people could retire with full benefits if they chose to leave.
Wow.
And so you can tell we're behind the curve. Mm-hmm. This hiring that we're going to need to do to continue to backfill is going to take us the next 5 years to get through that hiring boom of the late 70s and the early and late 80s.
So you talked about you've been able to do some improvements to, how long does it take to hire someone and train them and get them in the field or in the jail?
In every part of what I'm going to say has 15 tentacles to it.
Sure.
But Up front, we have narrowed it down to 3 or 4 months to get them through the application testing phase. But for example, in the enforcement branch, by the time I get you through, I give you a conditional hire, I hire you, you pass all of the polygraph and the psychological, the things, the medical that we give you after. I then have to get you into the academy. And I could wait up to 6 months to get a slot for you in the academy. And then you're going to spend 20 weeks in the academy. And then you're going to come out of the academy and you're going to go between 4 and 6 months with a field training officer in the field. So it's easily 18 months before you're sitting in a police car answering calls for service by yourself, where you're just not supplementing somebody else. So it's a long process. So we have to keep that flowing. We have to keep moving on the hiring. And I will say real quick that by working with the county council, they allow me to overhire or double fill a position, knowing fully well that we're going to lose somebody over the next year, or a number of somebodies, and I've got to keep those bodies in fluid motion going through and getting them ready to go to the academy, and just to keep up.
Sure, and the good news of low unemployment rate, that's good news for people, but also it's got to be very tough for you to compete against all other enforcement agencies.
Absolutely. If you went online just to look at coming to Clark County to be a police officer, you can find agencies within Clark County that are going to pay you more money. And that might be what grabs you and gets you here to start with. It's people that know Clark County, know the family environment that we have with the Sheriff's Office, that we get a lot of people coming here. We also have some great laterals out of Las Vegas Metro and different places that have come, Portland, that have come over, that have lived here, or they have come here because they have heard about Clark County, they enjoy it, they then pass the word, and we get more people coming. So the laterals that we've been able to acquire over the last few years have been a huge benefit to us.
Good. Is there anything else you'd like to share with viewers about the Sheriff's Office?
You know, the Sheriff's Office is a unique place. I have the privilege of sitting here talking with you and trying to be the face of the agency. I've done the work. I've done it before, so I understand it to some degree. But I am removed as an elected official sitting there doing the job. And I'm reminded daily when I go out in the field, when I sit and talk with applicants within the Sheriff's Office that want to grow, that want to, come up in the agency, of the quality of people that we have that are out there every single day working so hard to do a good job to provide public safety to the community. At a time when maybe they're not looked upon in quite the way that I would like them to be looked upon. We suffer the same consequences that others, for other people's actions, per se. Clark County is a great place to work. It's a great place to live. And I just want the people to know that the employees that work with the Sheriff's Office every day go out there with the idea in mind that they want to provide the best they can and protect this community the best they can. And it's an honor for me to be able to work with them.
Thank you. Now, best way for citizens to contact you?
Well, they can get a hold of me at, they could call 564-397-2211.
Okay.
And that'll get the Sheriff's Office. I usually don't give people my direct line.
Sure.
They've got to kind of filter through a few people,
Sure.
or I'd be real busy. They can go online at www.clark.wa.gov/sheriff, and they can get an email into the agency, and I get an opportunity to look at every one of those.
Great. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking within the next 3 years before we go, but thank you so much for your service.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the honor to be here.